Nice.
All right. Yeah, Matt was in the supply chain management class last semester. So welcome everyone. I am Professor Justin Golston here at Bloomsburg, and the discussion we're going to have here today is the future is now, and we're focused on drones and 3D cameras within the industry. Now, I think that a lot of us, view drones in our area as, as toys and for entertainment, but the goal today is to talk about how drones are used within the industry itself, how drones can actually save lives, and how drones can benefit organizations and workers within the industry. Okay, so I have Thomas Mason and John within our discussion. So Thomas, can you start off and introduce yourself and talk about your interaction with using drones?
Excellent. Yeah. So my name is Tom Mason. I'm a 1984 Bloomsburg graduate, and I've been in the insurance business really since then. So 35 years or so. I've seen a lot of changes, a lot of technological changes in our business. Most recently, when we talk about drones and 3D cameras, I'm in the claim end of things with insurance companies. So our job is to evaluate our exposures and to determine what the damages are in a certain area or on a certain building or in a certain home. So we use drones in a number of different ways. If we think that, or if we know that a hurricane, as an example, is going to hit the United States, like we've had 6 or 7 of them very recently, and one's bearing down on us now in the Gulf Coast. So our company insures buildings and businesses in Texas and in Louisiana. So we will send a group of folks down into that area because we know we have exposures there. We have buildings there that we insure and risks and exposure to our company. We'll go down there with this technology, and we'll be there for right after when the hurricane hits. And we will send our folks in there with these drones and fly the drones over neighborhoods, over commercial commercial areas, to determine the exposure, to determine the extent of the damage to those buildings. It helps us evaluate damages, and then we can kind of game plan from there without exposing our employees to harm. So years ago, when I started in the business, I would actually have to take ladders out and climb these buildings and see what the damages were to maybe a 10,000 square foot factory. Today we fly drones over. We take photographs, still and video, of the areas. We evaluate those photographs instantly, and we determine an action plan from there. So if you own a factory, or if you run a factory in Louisiana, downtime to you is very important. So if we know that you've got X amount of damage on a roof that was done by the hurricane literally yesterday, we can begin to repair those buildings, initiate construction materials, things of that nature, and get you back in business very quickly. So that's one way that drones helps us evaluate our damages. We also use it in our day-to-day evaluations when we're evaluating a risk. If we want to insure a risk and it's a 20,000 square foot building, we don't have to walk around it. We don't have to take measurements of it. We do it all digitally, and from a drone that we fly over it, we take a good look of the building. We take snapshots. We do diagrams based on what the drone tells us, and we actually evaluate the quality of that building before we insure it. So it lets us know exactly what we are insuring and what our risks are. So a lot of uses, a lot of good uses, keeps our folks safe, and helps us with our financial exposures.
Well, Justin's on mute, so I'm going to go. Thank you, Tom. That's quite an intro. John McCarraher, class of '90, computer science and math major. So I am an IT project manager. I've actually been in the mortgage industry for over 20 years now, or about 20 years. So my personal experience with drones is flying it into my neighbor's house. So just a little one. I took my daughters and boom, right into the neighbor's house. But the mortgage industry, we will use them to do the outside of the building for appraisals, for property inspections, and some real estate companies will actually use a small drone to fly inside the buildings to do a virtual tour. So instead of walking through with an expensive camera, just take a little drone, fly it through, and you can do a little tour as part of your selling process. So Thomas, you had mentioned you do outside inspections and so forth. Do you do any interior drones that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of, no, because we're mostly concerned about the structure of the building. But you're right, I could see that application on some larger commercial enterprises to evaluate, because we write a lot of business personal property. So we are concerned with what's inside the building. So I can see that coming next. We probably just don't trust our people enough. That's all.
Right. So we may have lost Justin. Tom, do you prefer Tom or Thomas?
Tom, that's fine.
Tom, can you talk a little bit about how the transition was from a people perspective? Because drones can be really considered disruptive, right? So we talk about the cultural shift, if you will, to be able to use the drones.
Yeah, it's interesting because change is difficult. And I see Justin made it back. And
can you all hear me?
Yes.
All right. Keep going. Sorry.
No problem. And change is difficult, and it can be difficult. And people might view technology as, maybe losing jobs or things of that nature. I will tell you that it has made us a lot more efficient, a lot more effective in what we do. Now, when we go out to evaluate a building or a risk, we can really evaluate it. And we can evaluate the whole neighborhood just with a flyover. But some of the things that were obstacles with us is the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA. You've got to be licensed to fly these drones. So my company alone, we had to license 500 people, to fly and operate these drones in residential areas and in neighborhoods, and you've got to play by the rules. It's no joke. You can't just fly a drone, in a neighborhood without permission and without intent. So that was quite an undertaking, and something that was kind of surprising to us, that you needed to be licensed for that. But we've overcome it, and I think what people have realized is, we're not there to replace their jobs. We're there to make them more efficient and more effective. And that's pretty evident as you can stand 2 feet on the ground and evaluate something that's 200 feet in the air, and evaluate it very well, very precisely, know exactly what you have. So I think the obstacles have overcome the fear.
Can you expand? So the licensing is very interesting to me, and it's a 2-part question. But what does that licensing process entail? And we normally say this to the end, but it's this you kind of led into it. Like, what type of careers can you have in a being a drone operator?
That's a good question. I don't know the too much about the whole type of careers. I just know what our industry does, and John might have some input from his as well. But the licensing is an FAA license. You've got a full background check. If you've got a criminal history or a criminal background, you're not going to get licensed. And in our case, you're probably not going to get that particular job. So our jobs within the insurance industry are outside property claim reps, and risk control specialists. So it's kind of a before the loss and after the loss roles. But for us, I'm in the claim department, and we have, with my company, we have about 500 people that do nothing but evaluate building damages and contents damages after a loss. So a lot of times it might be a fire. So if you have a fire to your business or a fire to your personal property or to your building, a drone and that type of technology will help us put things back together quickly and efficiently. But yeah, you've got to go through testing to be licensed for all that, and it's no joke. You've got to study for it, and I don't know exactly. It's been a little while since I've gone through it, but it's a government application. It's a government licensing situation, so that's it's pretty important that it's done right. So that's how our industry really uses those drones and to put things back together. I will say that the 3D cameras, you mentioned them earlier, Justin. We also use them to evaluate, as an example, physical damage to vehicles. So years ago, if you got into an auto accident, you called your company and they said, we'll send somebody out to look at, you send an auto appraiser out to look at your vehicle. Today, we say, take 6 pictures of your vehicle, take them from the corners, take them from the actual damage, and we'll evaluate them right over the screen. We'll use a 3D type situation. We'll have a hot map, and we'll evaluate the damages based on that hot map. And we'll say you need to replace the quarter panel, you can fix the door, you need to repaint 3/4 of the car and blend it, and here's your check for $3,500. And it's within hours of you reporting the claim versus a week or 10 days, literally 5 years ago.
Really interesting.
Yeah, so we're using this 3D technology, and generally, about 80% of the people will say, yeah, that sounds interesting to me. I'd rather shoot 6 photographs. We evaluate it with our claim professionals that are evaluating the damages with these photographs, and then we send you the picture. And about 80% of the time, we're using that now, and people are having a check with an electronic transfer within a day. And years ago, it was probably, 2 weeks. So it's just helping us become more efficient with labor costs and even with material. Think about it. We're not paying somebody to drive out in a company car and spend, a couple hours to evaluate that damage when we're looking at a few photographs and we're evaluating it in 20 minutes.
Right. Interesting.
Tom, did you hire new drone operators, or did you outsource that to a third party?
No, we actually trained our people to do it.
Your current people or new hires, or a little bit of both?
A little bit of both.
Okay, yeah. Great.
Yes.
We outsourced a company to come in and train us.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And because they really knew the business, that business, we told them what we wanted it for, and they framed the training for that, for our application.
Interesting. So my burning question is, how many drones do you have in your arsenal?
We have about between 500 and 600.
Really? That's crazy. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And I think that you hit on something that John and I talked about yesterday in terms of, these technologies taken away from jobs. John and I was talking about, when we're trying to blend the 3D cameras, I know that there's some organizations out there that are using drones to evaluate like solar panels. And they're using these thermal cameras to just fly over these thermal fields and identify which of these thermal panels are, essentially blown out. I'm not working necessarily. I don't know what they really call it, but John made a point where, you're taken away from a job from that guy or lady that's driving around this solar field trying to just inspect all these solar panels. That's taking him a week to find all these panels that just took that drone 2 hours to do. But I mean, I think that, to your point, I think that my argument is that we just train that person that's driving around, and now he's empowered. Now he's probably getting paid more.
Yeah.
Now he's probably getting paid more because now he has to learn how to fly a drone. Now he's more valuable to the organization, and I think that it's going to empower these employees within your organization. So that's one thing that I want, and this regardless of what technology we're referring to. We could talk about artificial intelligence. I'm big on artificial intelligence. We can talk about blockchain. It is assisting those employees in their jobs. It's making their jobs easier. It's not taking away from those jobs. Now that begins with the leaders of the organizations to understand that, because that's where these implementations fail, where the leaders of the organizations think that drones are going to be the silver bullet. They think that these technologies are going to be the silver bullet, but currently, as it stands now in the industry, you still have to have that human intervention. In case I spent my whole entire career in technology, so I know a little bit about that. But I think that that's one of the important things that we need to share with students, and that's one thing that we need to share with leaders as well. So what's your thoughts on that? Anything else to add on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, you can't speak to a drone.
Right.
A drone isn't going to tell you how much we're going to pay you or when we're going to get you back in business. I always thought that, and I always tell our folks, the more you know, the better off you are.
Right.
And you mentioned it, Justin. If I'm trained to operate a drone and handle the drone, or maybe the 3D cameras, and I can add that onto my resume, I'm more marketable.
Yes.
So that's really, to me, it's that simple.
I didn't want to say that since you're the one who hires those people. You said it, not me.
Yeah. And if you're good at what you do, you're going to land on your feet and you're going to be valuable. And so my advice to folks entering the workforce or thinking about entering the workforce is, if your company ever offers anything, any type of training, suck it up, absorb it.
Mm-hmm.
If they say, hey, we want to look at testing, a drone over here, raise your hand. People want to, managers and leaders want people who are going to get things done, who are going to help them meet their goals, and who are going to just suck up and absorb information and new changes. And I will tell you that of 500 or 600 people, we had several resistors. And people that have been in the business and said, oh, this is never going to work. This is, can't replace, my eyes and that type of thing. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you that those people have either changed or they're gone.
Right.
And, it's really up to them. But I will tell you, companies won't wait for you.
That absolutely, without a doubt. That's what I tell my students. So there, you heard it here. You heard it here from the hiring managers, and there's always going to be resistance to change. And I will say that, I've worked with a lot of leaders to kind of talk about that, whenever you are doing something like drones, you have to explain the why. And I will also say, for me, I come from a technology industry, and I think that this is within any project where you first have to explain the why. You're changing the processes of these people who've been in the industry for 15 years, right? Those guys who were walking on the roofs for 15 years, right? That's all they know. And now you're trying to give them technology. Well, they don't even have a computer at home, right?
But Tom's right. Today's workforce is nonstop learning.
Absolutely.
Everything changes so quickly anymore. Even your cell phone, every 9 months, a new cell phone comes out. So you have to be able to adapt. You have to be able to embrace new ideas, and change. Otherwise, you will be left in the dust. Right. Especially in the technology field, where I am, I've seen plenty of people not keep their skills up, and it doesn't take long to become unemployable. It really doesn't.
Right. Especially now when it's going to be ever increasing as we continue on with all these advancements. And a lot of my students hear me talk a lot about Jack Welch, and he says if your external environment is changing quicker than your internal environment, your company's doomed. And I use the example of MySpace. And in my classes I say, okay, how many of y'all remember MySpace? Out of 30 students, I would say like 4 of them raise your hand. It was like I think it was like when I was in high school. So I'm saying 2000 or so, right? MySpace was like the 4th largest organization in the world. Now Justin Timberlake owns it. I think he paid like $350 million for it, something crazy like that. And it was a multi-billion-dollar organization. And whenever Facebook came on the scene with all of their changes, MySpace said, "No, our people will stay with us." No, didn't take long, And I think that you both made this point where it's not about the employees, it's the organizations that have to make this change. So to Tom's point, Tom's competitors are doing this stuff, are doing these drone flyovers. So Tom's company had to do it as well to remain competitive. And I think that the way that the market's going right now, yes, fortunately and unfortunately, if you have people that resist change, we have people. There's people that can feel that need. So, for example, this is my last example. I know I'm dominating this thing, but I work with a manufacturer it was in Wyoming, Casper, Wyoming, and they had a tough time. They had a tough time getting employees within their facility because those same people could drive an hour down the street and get paid $60,000 to drive a water truck in the oil field. Right? So those oil fields had absolutely no problem finding water truck drivers.
Yeah.
Right? So in order to remain competitive, this manufacturer had to up their salary, their salary base.
Yeah.
To remain competitive with their because they couldn't find people. So the market will drive you, and in some industries, the industry is gonna the consumers, I should say, is gonna drive you. So with this technology, all organizations have to keep up with the technology.
Exactly.
So I know that. So there was one interesting study that Goldman Sachs did in 2019. And I do stress 2019 because it's pre-COVID. And Goldman Sachs said that this drone industry. So they refer to this drone industry as unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, I should say, right? UAVs. And they said it's going to be $100 billion industry by 2020. Again, pre-COVID. So, and of that, they said that the military is going to make up that largest area with $70 billion. The consumer sector, so the individual hobby toy type, things are going to be 17 billion, and then the business and civil, so our states and local, areas are going to make up 13 billion. So, do you all think that the industry is going to increase post-COVID because of all the things that have happened? And 2, do you think that there's going to be new entrants into that number from an industry perspective? So do you think that there's going to be do you think it's $1 billion industry for the insurance market?
Well, you want me to go on this, John?
Yeah, go ahead. Take first crack.
Okay. So based on what you're saying, I would say that I'm surprised that it's that light, that it's only 13 billion for the commercial industry, or for the commercial industries. I see it as much more than that, and a kind of an unlimited ceiling. And I think COVID, if anything, is going to accelerate that. I will tell you that COVID's changing everything. right?
Yes.
So I was working in an office with 300 people, 8 months ago, and I haven't seen any of them face to face, since March, and I probably won't, maybe for another year, and then after that, maybe 2 days a week, maybe, when we were 5 days a week in the office. So I think that's changed everything, and I think just for us. In the insurance industry, if we had 5,000 drones in 2019, we'll have 10,000 in 2021. I think we're going to double.
Really?
Yeah, because I don't think we're going to want to come in contact with anybody. I really don't. I think we're going to want to limit our exposure.
You can't do any screening.
No. And I've been in some very, after hurricanes, as an example, I've been in some swamps, homes and buildings that were swamps in 3 days, and walking around and measuring things and doing things, I'm talking 10, 15 years ago, where tomorrow we won't have to do that.
Right.
So our whole workforce will be equipped, with similar type technology. So we're going to protect our employees from a lot of different things with this technology, and we're only going to accelerate it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So do you currently fly drones into homes to do those assessments?
Not inside the homes.
Okay. Would that be possible?
That's what John was saying.
There are micro drones that will fly through a house with a camera, and it records it for like the self-guided tour for like when you're selling your house.
Oh yes.
If you go online, a lot of them have like, "Ooh, let me take a tour," and in many cases, that's a drone just flying through the house.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So we may get there. I will tell you, there's probably some liability concerns there. Where just as an example, I mean, there are liability concerns now with drones on the outside, and that's why we're licensed and regulated, and we do all the testing and all the training and retraining and make sure that we understand, the severity if we do something wrong. And we've only had 2 incidences of problems with the drones, and people not being professional as they were using them and maybe flying them over places where they shouldn't have been flying over them.
Oh, understood.
And we've taken care of that. But those are some of our concerns. So inside the home with invasion of privacy and things of that nature, that's going to be a tougher one for us to tackle.
Yeah. So John, and that's one thing that John brought up yesterday. So do you want to start? Well, let me back up before I hit that one. So what else do you want to add about the previous question before you get into that privacy question?
The drone industry is absolutely expanding. It is not only here to stay, it's going to just continue to explode. Not only because of the virus, but just additional business uses and additional technology.
Mm-hmm.
You can put a thermal camera on the drones for search and rescue for people in rubble or people who are lost in the woods. You can deliver supplies to them. Amazon and Walmart are both doing all kinds of patents around delivery.
Mm-hmm.
And it's ironic, Amazon was really pushing hard for drone delivery, but Walmart really has the advantage in terms of geography, because like 90% of Americans live within 10 miles of a Walmart. So
that's brilliant.
So Walmart
that's a good point.
Amazon really drove the drone delivery, but Walmart is in prime position, pun intended, to really capitalize on it.
That's a very interesting point.
Yeah, and the applications, like I said, it's as software, as technology keeps improving and evolving, there's going to be even more applications we haven't even thought of yet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's a good, excellent point, in that there's use cases that pop up literally daily, for AI and ML and things like that. And I think we're going to have the same thing with drones, where we're going to have a number of use cases arising, as we progress in this, as we emerge out of this pandemic, I will say. But yeah, that's a good point with the whole Walmart Amazon thing, because you are exactly correct. I mean, and Walmart already has like the logic where they have the site to store type thing online, where you can go and see if that store in your area has that item, and they can do that and say, okay, here you go, here, drone.
Yeah.
Like
and they certainly have the financial muscle to pull it off.
Absolutely. So Thomas, how long did it take for you to start that process to get that implementation operational? So that's a good point.
Well, from starting the process, we're talking about a proof of concept, a pilot that probably took 6 months. And that was only with a handful, maybe 10 drones. We've had a lot of things to work through, like consumer acceptance, privacy, I mentioned, our ability to actually do it, the licensing and things like that. So that probably took 6 months for us to work through it. And then to roll it out for 500 people, it probably took 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And
2 years, okay.
And then as we're gaining acceptance and as we're continuing to use it, it's additional training. It's it's almost like CE type courses to maintain your licenses, and then when new folks come on board, training them as well, and then different applications. So we started it out just with normal risk evaluation. So if you wanted to insure a building for $1 million, we would go evaluate it. And we would evaluate it with these drones. So that's how it started. And then we got into after you had a loss, if you had a fire and it took out a large section of your roof or your building, then we would start to evaluate it with drones there. It passed all those tests, and then we got into the catastrophe impact. So like I mentioned, with these hurricanes coming in Louisiana, we started to evaluate neighborhoods. So if we insured 20 buildings in a neighborhood, we would start to evaluate them with some of our catastrophe claim professionals, and we could get a real good feel for what the damages were. So all that took probably 2 years really to roll it out. But now we're seamless. Now we're, if we wanted to do a new application, we could do it in a month.
Interesting.
Now we've got 500-600 people that are licensed, are good with it. We've got, HR is good with it. All of our problems.
The most important people need to be good with it.
Exactly. So the one thing I wanted to mention is Matt indicated that he was a supply chain management major, and I think this does have implications with that supply chain.
Mm-hmm.
And logistics. And, I don't know how long we've had the supply chain major, maybe 5 years, but it's probably the major of the future because of technology like this.
Absolutely, because I teach in it. Yeah, that's the biggest program. Just kidding. Continue.
Well, John mentioned Amazon and Walmart and these companies, and they're going to be successful if they can get their products to people quickly and in one piece. And this is going to have an implication. I don't know exactly where it's going to land, but it's going to have its implication in a lot of different industries. But supply chain is certainly one of them.
Absolutely. And that's where I was introduced to drones, in a business environment where I was evaluating the a proof of concept, if you will, of using drones in the warehouses to do physical inventories and cycle counts and things like that, and the drones collecting that data and then pushing that data to the ERP system. And so there's a lot of warehouses in the UK that are doing this, but there are some organizations in the US that are somewhat hesitant because of the regulations and the risk and things like that. So that leads me into, so John, do you have anything to add from the previous question before you?
No, I think Tom nailed it.
Okay. So going back to like the regulations that we have for these drones, because there's a lot of applications for drones in Africa. There's a lot of application of drones in the UK. There's a lot of application of the drones in areas such as Saudi Arabia within the oil and gas industry.
Yeah.
But
hey, Justin, I'm sorry. We have a question in the chat. Do you want to take that up?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So David Hall, what's going on, David? I had David in my class last semester. And so to combat the wait time of ambulances, what about drone mounted AEDs for someone that's having a heart attack to get the AED out to them in minutes? What's your thoughts on
that? I think that's very feasible, and in some cases, I think it's already, maybe not that specific case, but drones are being used by rescue teams already.
Yes, absolutely.
They're being used for search and rescue. They can deliver small amounts of medicine or water, light supply. So I don't think there's any reason you couldn't strap an AED on them. You just need, I don't know the weight limit. You just need a drone strong enough to be able to carry it.
Yeah. Amazon has proven to carry packages up to 50 pounds. So, I mean, Amazon has drones that they're carrying packages up to 50 pounds. So that's a pretty good test. But yes, the Navy is actually using drones for search and rescue missions, in the ocean, and performing rescue missions like that within the ocean. So there's a lot of there are some aspects to where the drones are already being used for those emergency missions. Okay. There was one use case where this child was lost in this family had acres and acres of land, and the child he took his dog out for a walk and went missing after school one day, and this drone uses those heat sensing cameras, and they were able to, they had 600 people and they couldn't find this child, and the drone found the child in, I think, like less than like a couple hours or something, by using that camera. So that's where at the beginning of this conversation, that's where you say that's how the drones can save lives, and it's just simple use cases such as that, So Thomas, were you going to say something?
No, I was just saying that's a really good question from David, and I'm glad to hear or see that he's thinking like that. But that's a great idea, and I'm sure that it is feasible.
Absolutely. So going back to any other questions? I had that one lined up, and then so as we talk about these risks and these concerns and the regulations, how do you think that the FAA regulations and the US regulations and the risks that arise are kind of not really limiting the uses of drones within the U.S., but the future state thinking of using drones in the industry? Because John, you and I actually talked about this yesterday.
Yeah, I think it is going to slow innovation a little bit, because there's safety concerns first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
And Tom even said, before they can do their drones, they had to engage a whole team of lawyers,
right?
To get licensed, to make sure they're in compliance, to review the FCC regulations. That takes time and it takes money. That's an expensive preparation step, right? So I think it's a necessary evil. I'm on I lean on the side of safety regulations. So that's my personal opinion. So, you know, I don't want to be like the Jetsons just yet, flying my own little car. I want to make sure it's safe, you know, and I don't want people ramming into me. So, you know, it's a trade-off. So I know internationally, a lot of countries are less strict. So it's you know, it's just a difficult trade-off. But I think it's going to slow us down a little bit. But at the same time, I see so many entrepreneurs out there and so many new ideas. I really hoping that offsets it, or we find some happy medium.
Excellent. Yeah, I like the Jesse was my favorite show when I was a kid. So, but sure I'm right there with you. It's like I don't even want the proof. I don't even want them to test it out, because we're gonna have these driving cars, and I'm still gonna be driving my regular car. I don't want to see that. But it's like, how do we get to that? But I mean, that's kind of like that resistant. It's like I'm resistant to change, right? But you know, it's kind of like, okay, when does it get to the point where you're going to be comfortable with it? You know, and it's almost like the self-driving vehicles. Sounds amazing, but I don't want to be driving down the road and see a car with nobody in it.
Yeah, right? I'm not ready for that either.
You know, and we talk, and we're actually on the phone. We're on this discussion talking about drones and talking about the benefits. But you walk outside right now and see a drone flying over your head, you're gonna feel a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know, so but that's going to be the world we're going to be living in, I think, in the next couple of years.
Well, I've even this past summer down at the shore, you know, I'm sitting on the beach and there's a drone going in slow motion taking pictures of people, and you have no idea where it came from, where it's going, what it's going to be used for, and there's not a darn thing you can do about it.
Yeah.
Right? You can't touch it down.
No,
because there's cameras on that thing's
a yeah. So it's you know, it's a big issue, and you know, this is a little bit extreme, but you also have, you know, the airplanes flying the banners across the ocean, you know, with the ads streaming. It wouldn't take much for a drone to get caught in the engine and take that plane down.
Right.
And about a year ago, it was either Heathrow or Gatwick in London or in England, where there were drones flying the airport. They shut the airport down for fear of a collision with, you know, commercial aircraft.
Right.
You know, and remember the Marathon on the Hudson a few years ago, 2 birds got caught in the engine and took down an airliner. Guess what's the same size as a bird? A drone.
Yeah, that's what I was going to. That's what I was going to say.
And a drone has a little more bone to it, right? A little more structure to
it.
Yeah. So it's a complicated. It's very complicated. You know, the opportunity is immense, but there's a wait a minute moment too. You know, we got to do this smartly.
But I know that we did talk about there's very few out there, but there are some where they have UAV traffic management systems. So just like air traffic control, there's air traffic control for drones. You know, so you're going to see an emergence in that. I know that was one of that's a lucrative position within the aerospace industry. I know that is the most. I think that's been ranked the #1 most stressful position in the world, like year after year. So I wonder how stressful it's going to be a drone traffic controller. You know, so that's going to be a very interesting concept. Thomas, did you have anything to add about that last?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, John mentioned how the U.S. is regulated. We're probably a lot more regulated than a lot of the other countries, and for good reason. You know, for the safety of our population, essentially. Yeah. So you mentioned, Justin, driverless cars, and I will tell you, you know, that's the business that we're in, insurance, and we had Uber using driverless cars, testing them out in Pittsburgh about a year ago, and they had a fatality from a driverless car.
Really?
Yeah.
Hear that one. They covered that one up pretty well.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because it really is going to change our industry, the insurance industry, because if the driverless car makes a mistake, that's really now a product's liability case, and it's not really a personal liability case, because if I buy something from GM that tells me it's not going to get into an accident, and it gets into an accident, you're probably not going to sue me, because I'm relying on General Motors or whoever the manufacturer is. So that's changing. It will change the industry. Now, they have a lot to work out. Like you mentioned, I don't think people are real comfortable with looking over and seeing no one behind the wheel.
Right.
But there were some people that were making estimations that by 2025, we would have 50% driverless vehicles. Now, I think as a result of things like this, they may have pushed that back, but certainly in our lifetime, we're going to see, we're not going to have to drive. We'll have a machine drive for us, but it's going to change, obviously a lot of safety issues. So the same thing can apply for the drone situation. As we roll out more and more of them, there's more and more opportunity for failures. And if a failure is big, like an airplane, and takes down a 200-seater airplane, that's going to set it back, and for good reason.
Right.
So there are a lot of things. And that's why the FAA is maintaining these regulations, and it is very important. We can't be flying something 1,000 feet above the Philadelphia airport. It's going to be a challenge. So these are some things that the technology can do things, but sometimes that comes down to human error. And how do we go about regulating or just staying in front of that? That's a tough one. Today we have 400 drones flying in the Philadelphia area. Tomorrow we might have 4,000.
Right. So you make an interesting point, because David Hall was in my class, and David Hall heard me talk a lot about the Tesla Cybertruck. So the Cybertruck, you can include a self-driving option. So how is that going to look for my insurance policy? Is that going to make my insurance go up?
Well, theoretically, it should make it go down, as long as they work, right? And that's going to have to be all worked out,
right?
And the different departments of transportation and the federal government obviously is going to have to be involved. But yeah, those are the issues. As an insurance company, how do we even evaluate that risk if there's no history, if there's no losses? Right. So that's going to be, and I think commercial insurance, with insuring the manufacturers of those items, is going to be what you pay for.
Right.
They've got to transfer that risk to the ultimate consumer. So it may cost you more to drive a driverless car than to drive your own car. We don't know. But if they make mistakes, it's going to be a big mistake. So that's going to be the issue moving forward.
Okay. Okay. So we got about 30 minutes left. No, there's no question. So given that we have a entrepreneurial, following here at Bloomsburg, we talk about the benefits, talk about the drawbacks, but I feel there's a big market for entrepreneurs to enter into this market to manufacture drones. There's a big market for entrepreneurs to repair drones, right? So you have two different angles to go down here. But what's your thoughts from I would say from an insurance perspective, because you did mention that the manufacturers may have an issue from an insurance perspective. So if I wanted to start my own drone manufacturing company where I'm manufacturing drones to cater to manufacturers, to count inventory, right? That's my niche market, right? So how would an insurance provider evaluate that organization, that drone manufacturer?
Yeah. Well, I will tell you that the cost to entry in that market, it has to be significant, and a lot of it, the technology has already been figured out. That's probably a fixed cost, at this point. But insurance, risk management is going to be a big decision, a big point of entry for anyone. So that's probably that's like the X factor. And companies, insurance companies are going to need to be very comfortable with your product if they're going to insure it. And that's probably also a niche market. So personally, I don't believe the companies I'm affiliated with would touch it. I think it's just such a specialty market. Aviation itself is a specialty market, and the companies that I'm involved with don't really get involved with aviation insurance. And this is a piece of that. So it's specialty, it is a niche, and it's something that you better be prepared to evaluate, because it's really going to increase or be a big influence on your entry into any market.
That's very interesting. So there's aviation insurance companies?
Yeah, and what they do is generally what they call, we layer them. So with any insurance, on a large commercial insurance, there's reinsurance involved. So I may insure ABC manufacturer who manufactures drones, and my company may have the first $5 million in exposure. And then there might be another layer for the next 5, and another layer with a different company, with another layer for the next 5, and so forth and so on. So that one incident can't bury an insurance company. So if you fly a drone into, the World Trade Center, or something of that nature, and it takes down a building that's worth, $1 billion, that billion isn't laid on one company. So that's how this aviation and the drone, that's how it would be priced. That's how it would be marketed. But everybody's got to get their piece, because if you've got some exposure, you got to get paid for it. But it's really about insurance. It's just about spreading the risk anyway. So that's kind of a clear indication. The World Trade Center itself, and that was an insurance claim that was probably around for 15 years, trying to settle those claims, because people insured the building, but there was probably 100 different companies that insured multiple pieces. One company had the first 100 million, then the next 50 million. It's layers and layers and layers, so that it wouldn't take down, one company. So this would be similar to that. So it would be a big item, that you would need to address right up front.
That is very interesting. Yeah. John, you have anything to add on that one?
No, nothing that interesting in the mortgage space. Sorry. Boy, glad you're here, Tom. This is fantastic.
Right.
The rates are great.
Oh, yeah.
Right. That's the positive benefit. So I think so, John. You did mention, how Amazon is trying to enter into the drone space with Amazon Prime Air. I think it's referred to, and I would say about 2 years ago there was a recording that came out where Amazon has this huge blimp, and the bottom opens out of this blimp, and all these 100 drones just start flying out all over the place, right? And they were just trying to test that, essentially that proof of concept for small package deliveries. To have Amazon to deliver a package within 45 minutes. So I showed that video in one of my courses, and one of the students say, "Oh yeah, that'd be awesome. Oh yeah, that'd be excellent." And one of the students who was ex-military, he said that's horrible. I said, what? He said that at any given, he's like, just imagine if that is over New York City. He said, one, you might have somebody taking pot shots at it. He said, and two, there may be a terrorist that has been working on Amazon, that has been like selling on Amazon for years and years and years and years and years, and just waiting for this blimp to fly over New York. And all you need is a little small package.
Yeah.
I said, you're correct. So, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a huge opportunity, but an equally large risk or liability, if you will. And not just a terrorist attack, but even a technology malfunction.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, blimps.
Led Zeppelin cover.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, I don't know how you make that. You have to build in some kind of redundancies, which is expensive. So you're adding to the cost with redundancies and testing it, and also hacking. How do you make it secure?
Yes.
How is that drone or blimp going to be controlled?
See, I didn't think about that either.
You're certainly not going to have a manned blimp up there sitting on top of all these packages. At least that's the goal, is to make it unmanned.
Right.
And then what's a safe elevation? How does it not interfere with flight paths if you're near a city or populated area? So there's all kinds of concerns that have to be addressed. And I'm not surprised one of your military students flagged it.
Right. But because when I first seen it, because it was on LinkedIn. I seen it on LinkedIn. One of my peers from the UK, one of my peers from my UK posted it. He's from London. And I came back and said, like, even before I presented this to my class at Penn State, I said this is brilliant, like in a rural area. I said, but I don't know if it's going to work in New York City. I got crucified. They ripped into me. And most of my people are technical, right? So they don't think about the cybersecurity. They just look at the tech aspects. And they said, well, Uber. They said Uber wouldn't work in New York City, but Uber worked in New York City. They said Airbnb wouldn't work in New York City. I said, but that has a big human element in it. This doesn't. Amazon's trying to operate this out of Sterling, Virginia. Once that gets built, they're trying to operate this out of the regular headquarters once it gets built, or the distribution centers. They're hundreds of miles away from this thing. That's where my concern comes in, and you hit the nail on the head. Cybersecurity, and I do a lot of research and discussions on industrial automation in the manufacturing industry. And my biggest fear with all of these technologies coming out is that we're rolling these technologies out before we have tested and validated the cybersecurity measures in place. And what I explained to my students is that I said, think about Tesla. I said, think about all that automation that they have in their factory. I said, there's a small risk, but there is a risk that someone takes over one of those machines that's carrying over one of those cyber trucks. They could be carrying over my cyber truck, so I'll be very upset. That thing just goes game over for Tesla.
Yeah.
Now I have to call Thomas and get an insurance claim.
I won't answer.
But I'll get a little off topic for a moment, but even with the new cars, we're talking about driverless cars, or even a car that you sync up with your garage opener, with your telephone. What happens when you trade that car in? Does it get reset?
That's true.
Not always.
That's
Not
true.
always. So everything has a security component to it. It's a big deal. The Internet of Things. It's security. It's a big challenge.
It's my biggest concern in that whenever this pandemic happened, that was my biggest fear, because the world, like not just the US, the world, it was the biggest vulnerability, I would say, in history. because everybody was trying to catch up. Everybody was trying to figure out what the heck is going on.
Yeah.
Right. And it was prime time for hackers. I'm very there. So Garmin, I think Garmin got hacked, and there were two other companies that got hacked, but I was surprised it was only those two large companies. Right. Thankfully, it was only those two large companies. I think Garmin lost a bunch of data because I think that they took over. I forgot. I think it was one of the major air carriers. You know, they wanted all this money, and it shut them down for a couple of days. You know, so it was a big issue, but it wasn't as big as I was expecting. Thankfully,
Right.
You're going to say something, Thomas?
Well, I was just saying back to kind of what we've been saying before is, you know, to me, the companies that can marry this logistics, you know, or supply chain, whatever you want to call it, if they can marry that with the IT and in particular the IT security, those are going to be the ones that are going to win.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're constantly fighting that battle. And you throw risk management into there. John mentioned you've got a battle there, but the ultimate prize is to be the distributor, you know, the distributor to the world.
Mm-hmm.
And if they can figure that out, and they are figuring out in little ways. You know, Amazon's come so far. I mean, who would have thought you could order something today and tomorrow it would be on your doorstep?
Right. Their current record is 50 minutes, 45 or 50 minutes or something like that.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And soon you'll be able to sit there and just think of a product that it will show up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You joke, but I think there is truth to that. I say give it 3 years.
Yeah. So who can win this? And it's going to be a constant battle. You know, that's the interesting thing. And things like drones and the additional technology is going to help people do it one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know, talking about a package delivery, when I remember when I was a kid, I was looking at the Sears catalog looking for stuff for Christmas. And now you get stuff within an hour, and Matt and David are going, what's a catalog and what's Sears?
Yeah. But it's crazy, and it's crazy how quickly this emerges, because like I do a lot of stuff on artificial intelligence, and artificial intelligence has been around since the 1950s. It was first introduced in the 1950s, but it has Amazon and Netflix have put artificial intelligence on the map. And you have seen all of these developments that, you know, Amazon has done just by using that technology. And this technology is not rocket science. And I think that we're going to be integrating things like artificial intelligence into this drone technology. And so Thomas, one thing I was thinking whenever you're talking about taking those pictures or 3D pictures, are you using like artificial intelligence in any way to kind of like say, okay, this matches up with this thing that happened, you know, in this area on this model, you know, in this year, and that's why you had to blend it?
Absolutely. We have a database from a vendor in the insurance industry with millions of vehicles, with millions of accident types.
Right.
So we know if you rear end a 2012 Toyota Camry, and you can take a picture of the rear where it was struck, we know that it's probably going to cost us $5,000 to fix it. You should probably make it a total loss, never even bother fixing it, cash it out. We know we can get X amount of dollars for the salvage of that car, because Mexico is going to take that and make it a taxi cab next week, and they'll pay us. And it's, you know, we joke, but it's the truth.
That's how that works. I always wonder how that works.
Well, we buy the car from you, and we give you X amount of dollars that it's worth. It's now ours.
Right.
So, by the way, this all happens in a day, right? Like where it used to
really?
It used to be 2 weeks. We know we're going to take it to a salvage yard that does nothing but sell damaged cars to buyers all over the world. And those buyers are looking at screens just like we are. And we have a salvage auction every day of the week. and we run cars through this auction. And,
Really?
Yep. And it'll bring up the particulars of each car. You know, this car is a 2012 Toyota Camry. It's got 72,000 miles on it. It has a rear end damage. Here's the damage. You can see it. The tires are good. This is good. It has this, and this. How much are you going to give us for it? We have 50 people bidding on it. It goes to the highest bidder. It could go to Turkey. It could go to Russia. It could go to Mexico. And then the next week, it's on a container truck or container boat, and off it goes.
That is nuts.
Because those countries don't have the tight restrictions of motor vehicles that we have. It's all legal. It's all, we don't mess around with that. And there are some buyers in the U.S., and the buyers in the U.S. might say, I can fix this and get it roadworthy and what have you. But if you notice, if you ever go overseas, you'll see a lot of Toyota Corollas and Camrys, and many of them came from the U.S. That were damaged in some sort. But anyway, the artificial intelligence is the pictures that we show, run it through a system, and it says, okay, if the car was hit at 20 miles an hour in the rear, more than likely you're going to need boom, 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 and whatever those parts are, and that's going to cost you $5,000, whatever it is. And then we say, well, but it's only worth $6,000. We're going to sell it. We're going to total it and sell it. So that might be one option. And then the other there's all types of ways. But then the other one, you can see, all right, well, there's probably some damage behind it because of the impact. And the artificial intelligence tells us you need these parts. And we put that on the estimate, and off we go.
Yes. Brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah. So it's very efficient. Speed to the consumer is very important. We mentioned Amazon and all that. Well, it's the same thing in our industry. And people don't want to say, well, I don't want to take my car to the shop. You come to me. I'm paying your premium, whatever. And we're saying, okay, take a couple pictures. We'll get it done that way. And a lot of folks, particularly the younger generations, are fine with that. And they bang us a couple pictures. We send them a check, and off we go.
Interesting. Yeah. So as we wrap up, we have like about 10 minutes. So we're going to wrap up. I'm learning just as much as Matt is over here, to tell you the truth, especially with that car auction thing. Hey, that's a career option right there for you.
Well, I'll talk about logistics. The people that work for those companies are very big companies. They have auctions. I'm sitting here in Pennsylvania. There's probably 4 just in Pennsylvania alone. And, they move thousands of vehicles through there. You've never seen it because it's kind of all behind the scenes. They move thousands of vehicles through. It's $1 billion industry that we wouldn't even know about,
Right. So you said you write me a check for $6,000 for my car, right? How much would you sell it for? Because they have to buy it, plus they have to pay for the logistical cost, the logistics to ship it over there.
Yeah.
So are they really making any money?
Well, we do. It's all on a percentage basis, so we get about 25% of the vehicle back. So if we settle for 10, you're probably going to pay us $2,500 on average. $2,500. The vehicle's then yours. You do with it what you want. Sometimes they will take it apart and use it for parts. So they might have $10,000 worth of parts on there. They have it all figured out. It's going to cost us, $1,200 to physically take this car apart. Then I have these parts, and I sell these parts, all over the world. Or we use it for transportation. We use it for whether it's a cab company, whatever it is, where they ship it to some other country. A lot of these cars leave the country, and then they get rebuilt to some satisfaction and sold.
Very interesting.
Yeah,
I'm gonna look into that. That might be an entrepreneurial endeavor. So Matt, do you have any questions? Put you on the spot there.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you what percent of vehicles do you send like overseas? Like how many do you keep like domestically in the US?
Well, we don't really know because once we sell it, it's not ours. So we sell it through an intermediary. We sell it through a company that's in the salvage business. So we don't really care where it goes. We rely on this company to sell it legally. Um, but if you ask that company, probably 75% of the cars leave the country.
Interesting. Anything else, Matt?
No, that's all I got. I don't think that there's anyone else in the chat either, so
Okay.
All right. Well, let's call it a day. This was a fantastic discussion.
To be honest, I love this discussion.
Yeah.
Whether somebody was in the chat or not, I learned a lot, especially by the end. I didn't know insurance should be that interesting, to be honest.
No, me neither.
Just being completely honest, just putting it out there.
I agree. I agree.
That was phenomenal. I mean, I did not know there's so much, within the insurance industry. I didn't know that there were going to be drones in the insurance industry either. So that was excellent. So, but within so John, is your company using drones a lot?
Actually, I don't know. I know the industry is,
Yeah.
but I don't know my company's involvement with them.
Okay.
I've only been here 2 months, so I don't know.
Oh, okay. Congrats on your new role. But yeah, I mean, yes, the drone. There's a lot of use cases for drones. Drones are huge within the environmental space. As Thomas said, there is huge within, natural disasters and things like that, emergency response, as well as within. It's huge in Saudi Arabia, in Abu Dhabi, in UAE and places like that because of the oil and gas industry. It's massive over there. So there's a lot of opportunities within the industry, especially for so Thomas, do you know like what the salary range would be for a new college graduate that wanted to get their certificate to drive a drone?
Yeah, we in the insurance industry, when you would come into the claim end of things, you'd probably anywhere. It really depends on where you're located geographically, but probably a low end of 50,000, high end of 75,000, and then you can go up from there. So, and
So that's entry level.
Entry level, yeah. Yeah.
So what? So if a Bloomsburg student would want to get into flying drones for a living, let's just say hypothetically. Sounds boring to me, but let's just say hypothetically. What type of credentials, like what would be the minimum credentials that they have, and what type of person would you be looking for?
Well, we would hire them as claim professionals. So we would hire them, as property claim professionals, and then they would complete the training that we had. So they'd have to be a college graduate, probably have a 3.0 or better, good communicator, and the ability to work well within a team, all that stuff. And then we would train them in the normal job, which would probably take about a year. And then if they're doing well, and most Bloomsburg graduates do, because I've hired a lot of them, then they go from there. So if they want to get involved with the drones, if they want to get involved with like catastrophe response, that's up to them. And then, I'd say, within a couple of years, they can get involved with that type of thing.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask, how long does it take to get certified by the FAA?
I'm not sure about that. That's done by a different department. But it's not as long as you would think. It's probably, a couple months. It's not drawn out. You've got to pass the test. And that's important, but it's not like you would think. It's not years.
Interesting.
Yeah.
John, are you still there?
Yes, I am. I had to take my video off, but I'm here.
Okay. So do you know? So in order to get in your industry, if a Bloomsburg graduate was interested in getting in your industry, what would be the requirements? What do you look for?
Now I'm in the mortgage industry, but I work in IT, so I'm an IT project manager.
Mhm.
So it's really going to depend on the position you're looking for. What it would really be a combination of, or any variance of business majors, finance, accounting. All of those are going to apply to or sales or marketing,
Mhm.
because all of those have positions within the mortgage industry.
Okay.
Because as a loan officer, you're taking down applications. There's a slew of management and supervision positions. There's underwriting, so and policy writing. There's no limit. It really is just a huge complex industry.
Excellent. Excellent. So as we wrap up, do you all have anything else to add? Any food for thought? Any recommendations? Any closing thoughts?
I mean, this is Tom. I would like to just say Bloomsburg is a great place to be. It gives you a really good, just this discussion alone. I've recruited at a lot of different schools, and very few of them have these types of programs. Matter of fact, I don't know anyone that has these types of programs. Take advantage of them.
Right.
The one quote I like, and it kind of is specific to this technology, is business is a race with no finish line. So business is a race with no finish line. I mean, we announced our quarter earnings on Monday. Nobody cares on Tuesday. You got to get going,
Right.
So
Absolutely.
it's just the way it is. And this technology is that way. So there's no finish line. It's a race, but you're just going to go and go and go. So the drones and the infrared technology and the artificial intelligence, that's just going to be part of your world, but it's going to be continual. So get used to it, be open to change, and be the first to volunteer, and you'll be good.
Excellent. Anything else to add, John?
No, I would just agree. I'm now at my 5th company, and every company I've worked with Bloomsburg alumni. So it is it's a small world, and Tom's right. Bloomsburg will serve you well. I've been in the Philadelphia area my whole working life, and I work with a lot of people from Drexel and Penn, quote unquote big engineering schools, and I compete with them just fine, and it's because of Bloomsburg.
There you go.
Good stuff.
There you go. Mic drop. So thank you, John and Tom, for sharing your thoughts. I learned. So I probably learned the most out of anybody. So thank you for that, and please, let's stay connected, and let's continue to let's have a discussion again next year. We'll talk about the developments of drones, the drone discussion 2021.
Exactly.
Sounds good. And thank you, Matt. Thanks, guys.
Yes, thanks.
Good seeing everybody.
Yes, good seeing you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.